Welcome, tech enthusiasts and startup aficionados, to another episode of Mapping the AI Frontier. I'm Mark, your guide through the treacherous waters of GenAI startups.
And I'm Tom, the compass that occasionally points south. Together, we're here to help you navigate the choppy seas of technology without capsizing your startup dreams.
Today, we're diving deep into the eternal struggle of startups everywhere. The build versus buy dilemma. It's like choosing between crafting your own lightsaber or just ordering one on Amazon Prime. All right, Tom, let's start by talking about mapping your technical stack. It's like playing Jenga with your startup's future, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Except in this game, if you pull out the wrong piece, you might end up with more than just a collapsed tower. You could be looking at a very expensive pile of digital rubble.
Exactly. That's where Wardley Mapping comes in. It's like having a cheat code for your startup Jenga game. You get to see which pieces are load-bearing and which ones you can safely outsource without the whole thing coming crashing down.
I love a good game analogy. So, what's the first move in this high-stakes Jenga match?
Step one is identifying all the components of your GenAI service, from the nitty-gritty infrastructure to the shiny user interfaces. It's like taking inventory of your Lego pieces before building the Millennium Falcon.
And let me guess. Step 2 is figuring out where these pieces fit on the evolution axis, like determining if your Lego piece is a rare collector's item or something you can pick up at any toy store.
Bingo! You're catching on fast, Tom. This is where it gets interesting. Some components might be in the Genesis stage, the cutting-edge stuff that makes your startup unique. Others might be approaching commodity status, as common as a live, laugh, love sign in a home decor store.
So, it's all about figuring out which pieces are worth crafting by hand and which ones we can just order online with next-day delivery.
Precisely, and here's where it gets tricky. You need to assess the strategic importance of each component. It's like deciding which character to level up in an RPG. Do you focus on your unique magic spell, or do you invest in generic armor that everyone else is using?
I'm sensing a but coming.
But indeed, you also need to evaluate the availability and maturity of off-the-shelf solutions. Sometimes reinventing the wheel isn't just unnecessary. It's like trying to reinvent a wheel when everyone else is already using hoverboards.
Ah, the classic hoverboard versus wheel dilemma. So, how do we balance all these factors?
That's where the real strategy comes in. You need to consider the long-term implications of each build versus buy decision. It's like chess, but instead of just black and white pieces, you've got a whole rainbow of options, each with its own special moves and potential pitfalls. All right, Mark, we've mapped out our tech stack Jenga tower. Now what? Do we start pulling pieces out and hope for the best?
Not quite, Tom. This is where we put on our dancing shoes and start the build versus buy tango. It's all about finding the right rhythm between innovation and efficiency.
Dancing? I thought we were playing Jenga. Now we're tangoing? Make up your mind, Mark.
Welcome to the world of startups, Tom. 1 minute you're an architect, the next you're a dancer. But let's break it down. Components in the Genesis or custom-built stages that are core to your startup's value proposition. Those are your solo dance moves. Build those in-house and make them shine.
Ah, so that's like our proprietary AI models or unique data processing pipelines? The secret sauce that makes our GenAI startup stand out on the dance floor?
Exactly. But remember, not everything needs to be a show-stopping solo. Some components are better suited for a group dance. Those are your candidates for procurement.
Let me guess. The cloud infrastructure, standard databases, and well-established AI frameworks? The backup dancers of our tech stack, if you will?
You're on fire today, Tom. Yes, those are typically better suited for buying. It's like using a pre-choreographed routine for part of your dance. It saves time. And let's face it, some people have already perfected those moves.
But surely it's not always that clear-cut, right? There must be some gray areas in this black and white dance-off.
Absolutely. That's where factors like cost, scalability, integration, complexity, and vendor lock-in come into play. It's like choosing between learning a complex dance move yourself or hiring a professional dancer. Sure, the pro might nail it, but can you afford them long-term? And what if they suddenly decide to quit right before the big performance?
Sounds like we need to add some extra layers to our Wardley map. Maybe a cost structure layer or a strategic importance filter.
Now you're thinking like a true tech cartographer, Tom. Adding these layers helps visualize the full picture. It's like having a 3D model of our dance routine, showing not just the steps, but the energy required, the audience impact, and the potential for wardrobe malfunctions.
All right, Mark, I think I'm getting the hang of this build versus buy tango. But there's one thing bothering me. Isn't the GenAI field moving faster than a caffeinated cheetah on a rocket skateboard?
That's quite the mental image, Tom. But you're absolutely right. The pace of evolution in GenAI is breakneck. It's like trying to perfect your dance routine while the dance floor is constantly shifting beneath your feet.
So how do we avoid spending months perfecting a move, only to find out it's become the AI equivalent of the Macarena? Outdated and slightly embarrassing.
That's where the true power of Wardley Mapping shines. It's not just about mapping where components are now, but anticipating where they're headed. It's like having a crystal ball for your tech stack.
A crystal ball? Great. Let me just add that to my startup shopping list, right between unicorn tears and dragon scales.
Very funny, Tom. But seriously, it's about considering the future movement of components along the evolution axis. A wise technology strategist once told me, "In the world of GenAI, what you choose to build today should still be a differentiator tomorrow. Everything else is a candidate for procurement."
Sounds like solid advice. But doesn't building in-house allow for deeper expertise and control?
Absolutely. And that's another factor to consider. Building in-house is like training to become a master of a specific dance style. You gain deep, specialized knowledge. But it also means you might miss out on learning other styles. Or worse, spend all your time practicing while everyone else is out there performing.
So it's a balancing act between developing our own expertise and leveraging existing solutions to stay agile and competitive?
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're innovating where it counts, but not reinventing the wheel, or in our case, the dance floor, where it's unnecessary.
All right, Tom. It's time to put on our cartographer hats and dive into the Wardley map for our hypothetical GenAI startup. It's like looking at the choreography of our entire tech dance routine laid out before us.
I see a lot of dots and lines, Mark. It's like someone spilled a very organized box of sprinkles. Walk me through it?
Happy to, Tom. Let's start with the basics. On the bottom right, we see our commodity components, things like cloud infrastructure and standard databases. These are our backup dancers, remember? Reliable, necessary, but not the star of the show.
Ah, I see. And I'm guessing those exciting-looking components up in the top left corner are our solo dance moves?
Spot on. Those are our proprietary AI models and custom user interfaces. They're in the Genesis stage, cutting edge, unique, and key to our competitive advantage. These are definitely build candidates.
What about that cluster in the middle? They seem to be in some sort of limbo.
Ah, good eye. Those are our custom components, like data processing and integration layers. They're important, but not quite as unique as our top left items. This is where the real strategy comes in.
Let me guess. We need to decide whether to choreograph these moves ourselves or bring in a specialist.
Exactly. And see how they're positioned to potentially move towards product over time? That's the evolution we talked about. We need to consider whether it's worth developing these in-house, knowing they might become more standardized in the future.
I notice there are some arrows connecting different components. Are these the dependencies you mentioned earlier?
Yes, indeed. These show how our components interact. It's like understanding how different dance moves flow into each other. We need to consider these relationships when making build versus buy decisions.
So, what's the verdict, oh wise Wardley mapper? What does this colorful sprinkle diagram tell us about our GenAI startup's strategy?
Well, Tom, based on this map, our startup is in a pretty good position. We're focusing our build efforts on those top left components that really differentiate us. But we need to keep a close eye on those middle components. They could be opportunities for strategic partnerships or areas where we might want to develop unique capabilities.
And I'm guessing we're happily buying those commodity components on the bottom right?
Absolutely. No need to reinvent the wheel, or the cloud infrastructure in this case. By leveraging existing solutions for these, we free up resources to innovate where it really counts.
You know, Mark, I never thought I'd say this about a map, but this is actually pretty exciting. It's like having a bird's eye view of our entire tech strategy.
That's the beauty of Wardley Mapping, Tom. It turns the complex world of tech strategy into a visual story. And in the fast-paced world of GenAI startups, having this kind of clarity can be the difference between leading the dance or tripping over your own feet. Well, folks, we've danced our way through the intricate choreography of build versus buy decisions for GenAI startups. Remember, it's not about building everything yourself or buying off-the-shelf solutions for everything. It's about finding that perfect balance, like a well-executed pas de deux between innovation and efficiency.
Indeed, Mark. And let's not forget the importance of our trusty Wardley map, the ultimate dance notation system for tech startups. It's not just about where your components are now, but where they're headed. After all, in the world of GenAI, today's cutting-edge solo could be tomorrow's line dance.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Tom. So, dear listeners, as you navigate your own build versus buy decisions, remember to keep your Wardley map close and your innovation closer. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Who knows, your feedback might just be the AI-generated music for our next podcast dance number.